Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and one of the most common questions I get is someone who has repopularized 5x5 full body type training on the internet, and my novice program has been run by thousands and thousands of people very successfully, and it's caused quite a bit of controversy and really confusion more than controversy, and it's in part due to a lot of YouTubers out there discussing 5x5 training and saying things like, oh, it won't put a lot of size on you, it'll put strength on you, that's powerlifting. Actually, that's really not true. That's because people don't understand the history of 5x5. So when people ask me, is it for size or is it for max strength? I don't understand. It's because they're generally not familiar with the history of where this came from, because there's been a couple different 5x5 styles that have been popularized over the years. So let's go back and look in history. Back in the early 1960s, a top bodybuilder, he was a top bodybuilder in the world at the time by the name of Reg Park, popularized 5x5 full body training for the purpose of bulking up. It's something that he utilized personally to get bigger. Now, he was tremendously strong. He was massive. He was, for his era, extremely impressive. He was shockingly big and strong for the era that he was in. And what he did, though, he didn't do them necessarily sets across or a single peak set, which is kind of where it gets confusing as far as what they're for. He did 2 ramp-up sets and he did 3 sets of 5 with the final weight, but he used a slightly lighter weight on the first 2 sets, so it was really ramping. But that is still definitely going to fall into hypertrophy work. And the thing is, when you're doing any sorts of sets across with 5 rep sets, what you're generally going to find is that you're going to be near the heavy end of what people call hypertrophy range training. And you got to remember, hypertrophy range training isn't that it produces more hypertrophy, it's that you can stimulate the most metabolic fatigue with the fewest number of sets so that you get out of the gym quicker. The whole idea of hypertrophy style training is that you work in a rep range and workload metabolic fatigue where you can get it into a few sets and get back out of the gym so that you can stimulate maximum growth and then leave without worrying about other performance elements. That's what we mean by hypertrophy training. That sort of 5x5 is near the heavy end of hypertrophy training. You're usually going to be able to do that with around 75 to 80% of your 1 rep max. So that's where there's a lot of confusion at. And it really got complicated when Bill Starr produced a 5x5 program for football players that became extremely popular, in which he had people ramp up on every single set. They got heavier, and their heaviest set they worked at around 85%. Well, because his other sets were too light to stimulate much growth, it's not a true hypertrophy style training, and you're hitting 85% of your max for an all-out peak heavy set. That is going to build a little more strength, a little more power than the standard sets across, because you're going, instead of 75 to 80% of your max, you're hitting 85. So then people started thinking of 5x5 as being strength training. But the truth is, when you look at it historically, it was really intended as a bodybuilder style of training that some strength athletes, field athletes like football players, picked up using it in a different manner. So when I have my novice 5x5 out there, it's actually sets across. You do all 5 sets with the same weight, and you're staying under 80% of your max to be able to do all 5 sets of 5. You're doing 25 total reps on each of the big exercises, which is going to be, again, what you need for maximum metabolic fatigue. That is enough total workload and tonnage for most guys to stimulate really, really good muscle growth while still gaining strength at a decent rate. Also, you're not going to gain power at the speed that you would on a true power program, but you're going to build a solid strength base while putting on as much size as possible. And then the program, I have assistance work that is 3 sets of 8. So again, you're going even lighter and working at 24 reps for other smaller muscle groups and muscles that maybe don't get hit as much on the big 5x5 movement. So it's really designed to kind of incorporate a little bit of both to get there. So when people say, is 5x5 for size or for strength, the answer is both. It is never going to be a maximum strength or power program, because you don't get there with 5 rep sets. And so what most 5x5 programs are, if they're ramping, they're usually somewhat strength oriented with a decent hypertrophy base. And if they're sets across, you're doing multiple sets of 5, they're going to be actually slightly more size oriented while still giving you a good strength base. So really, 5x5 style training is kind of a hybrid style training that can either be considered hypertrophy work or high strength hypertrophy hybrid work, depending upon how you approach it. So hopefully that answers the question and it clears up any misconceptions that are out there. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.